And in times of incredible change, as we have all been through, I think there can be a real tendency for people to become insular and defensive. It's almost a means of defending themselves from change. So to see all of you here looking outward and looking for some learning and engaging in the process of building your personal skills, it's not only encouraging to see, it also says a lot about each of you. So I want to thank each of you for being here. And I'd also like to thank our Executive Director, Liz Hartman, and our Leadership Lake Oswego Facilitator, Dr. Korash, just for asking me to speak to all of you with a little bit about my leadership journey and what I find so critical to the process. This is definitely a pleasure and a privilege. So, as Robin mentioned, my wife and I have had the pleasure of teaching individuals and families to be strong and secure for the last 30 years. And we've done that through the process or through the venue of martial arts. I say that very specifically in that way because it's not about teaching people punches or kicks or grappling. Martial arts is really about teaching people to remain present and focused in times of duress and stress, because it really doesn't matter what you know or what you'd like to do. If you can't stay focused during stressful times, our ability to execute what we know, or even to express what we would like to express, takes an incredibly significant decline. Furthermore, our executive function, our ability to make good decisions, also tends to go out the window. I'm sure we've all seen some really great people do some really silly things when they get stressed. And we might even be aware enough to count ourselves in that group of people making mistakes. Often, if we ask somebody after they've made a mistake, well, why did you make that mistake? And we'll often hear people say, well, I just wasn't really thinking. And well, that begs the question, well, why weren't we thinking? When people get stressed, our vision tends to narrow. And as our vision tends to narrow, our thinking tends to narrow. You add to that the fact that our heart rate and our respiration tend to go up. And those resulting feelings, that little bit of anxiety, can often compel us to act from a less than intentional and thought out space. So if we cannot stay present and grounded when things are stressful, it becomes very difficult to remember our purpose and what it is we're really trying to contribute to the events of our life or the event in front of us. If we can't remember what that is, we're going to have an awful hard time landing there and bringing about the types of outcomes that we're looking for. So this is really where the practice of martial arts comes in. Martial means of or pertaining to war or conflict. Art means having an elevated level of skill. So at its heart, martial arts is about having an elevated level of skill regarding handling or navigating conflict. Now, I imagine most of you are not getting into fights with punches and kicks every day. At least I certainly hope not. However, I do imagine it's far more likely that all of us are experiencing some form of conflict on a daily basis. You might just encounter a little bit of conflict, but more important, I think, than even the conflicts we encounter on a daily basis are the conflicts we bring to every encounter we're in. There's the old adage about wherever you go, there you are. And to whatever degree we're walking around in conflict, to that same degree, we're not applying ourselves to the events in front of us, whether it's a relationship, whether it's navigating an issue, handling a problem. If we just give it a random number and we say we're 30% in conflict, and that means you're never really bringing more than 70% of yourself to any goal or thing that you're trying to pursue. So if there was just a way we could hold our behavior up to the light, observe our own approach to things, notice when our current answer is falling short, and then make some improvements, we could continually improve our approach. And that's exactly what we use the venue of martial arts for. One of my favorite ways of describing martial arts is describing it as a crucible in which the pressure causes our impurities to rise up to the surface. And you can go, oh, there's one of my shortcomings. And you can take a look at that and you can find another way of handling that situation. And the other real advantage that comes from a physical practice like martial arts is just that, it's the physical nature of it. Because it doesn't matter what type of stress you were experiencing in your life, if it's a financial stress, if it's a social stress, if it's a conceptual stress about a deliverable, we all feel that stress and that stress manifests physically. So it doesn't matter where your stress is coming from, you are dealing with it on a physical level. Now, it's incredibly valuable to talk about things. However, there's this element of talking about things where it is easy to say, I know, I agree I should be calm and I should be composed and I should be collected in times of stress. We can all say that rather easily. However, it's another thing entirely to physically get yourself to demonstrate that over and over again, so that when you encounter some stress and you begin to feel your heart rate come up, you can relax, you can take a deep breath, you can remember what it is you were there for. And this is a place where Dr. Korash and I are in complete agreement. The more present and wholly engaged we can be as individuals, the better we are as leaders. Any shortcomings we have as leaders are not things that are external to ourselves, as if there's a skill set over there I need work on. Those are the areas we as individuals have room to grow. So this practice, this reflective practice, really becomes the practice of being who you want to be, wherever you find yourself, whether you're stressed or not. And by taking the time to invest and engage in a truly reflective practice, we have the opportunity to move ourselves and consequently the people around us to better outcomes. In being asked to share my thoughts about the idea of a leadership journey, if I was going to start with the things that I think are absolutely critical, I would have to start by clarifying the fact that this is a leadership journey that I am currently on, not a leadership journey that I've completed. And I heard other people saying the same things. This is an ongoing process. I have not arrived anywhere other than where I currently am, and I haven't found any answers other than the ones that have got me this far. This leadership thing and this life thing, they're one and the same thing. And it is an ongoing process for as long as we're given that opportunity. And any answers that we think we might have are really just our best understanding up to this point. So that is really the beautiful thing that unites all of us. Every single one of us is just a work in progress, doing the best we can with the and the opportunities we've been given. Each and every one of us is just trying to win and succeed as we've defined it or as we've had it defined for us. Now, to be sure, we've all been given different resources and we've all been given different opportunities. Some time reflecting on what truly matters to us and how we personally want to define success. And if not, don't worry, that's certainly part of what this class is about. So I'd say those are the very first things I would choose to clarify about any leadership journey. Number one, it's ongoing. Number two, we're in it together. And number three, where we choose to take it is really up to us. So if we talk about the ongoing nature of leadership, it is a process that is fueled primarily by questions. And it's one in which the most pivotal and influential parts of leadership take place in uncertainty. In regards to our personal growth and leadership, questions are the most powerful tool we have. Answers alone can be incredibly dangerous things. Not that there isn't value in answers, but there's a real risk in answers as well. Once we think we have the answer, we can tend to stop looking. So all answers that we come up with and all answers that we've ever been given should, in my opinion, they should really come with an addendum. Something like, as far as I know right now. Of course, that denies us a degree of certainty. And that's incredibly important because that leads us right back into being comfortable with uncertainty. Knowing that the bulk of really meaningful leadership takes place in uncertainty, the more comfortable we can each become in uncertainty, the more functional we will be as leaders. Which brings me to number two. We're all in this together. To engage in this process of life is to be engaged in the process of leading ourselves and others. And this is important, whether we're aware of it or not. We're all here engaging in this class right now. This is a formal setting. We're all here engaging in this class or other classes like it, thinking that we're going to learn some good leadership thoughts. And I'm sure that we will. However, more important than that, it's absolutely critical to understand that every single thought we have is a leadership thought. They're just not all leading us to good places. Every single thought we think leads us down a path of perception, and it sets the tone not only for our experience of life, but also the manner in which we express outward, and therefore the influence we have on other people around us. Which means, in point of fact, we are all constantly leading both ourselves and others every single day, in little ways, in big ways, all with the thoughts that we allow ourselves to think. So if you didn't want to be a leader, I'm sorry, I hate to tell you this, but it's too late. You're already a leader. Knowing that, I think it's incredibly relevant. And the most relevant and meaningful question we can have at this point is, are we leading ourselves and those around us to the places that we value the most? I often wonder what might happen if we all understood that every single thought we think is a leadership thought. Perhaps we might choose to be a little bit more mindful of the thoughts we allow ourselves to think, at least during those moments where we're cognizant of that process. I think it's important to understand that we cannot escape the fact that we're constantly leading ourselves and the people around us. Which brings us right to number 3. Where do we want to go? If we're leading and the choice is ours, where is it you want to lead yourself and the people around you? Like I said, if we're fortunate, we actually get to spend some time reflecting and consciously examining what does matter to each of us. At the end of the day, this is your life, and today is one of the days of your life. Are we spending our days moving towards the things that truly matter to us? That's the bottom line, and I think that's the most important leadership question there is. If we don't spend time looking at that, we might wake up one day and discover that we've been spending a portion of our life going in somebody else's direction or pursuing things that matter to somebody else. And while they might have some value to us, are they the most valuable thing to us? And we'll never really know the answer to that unless we really look. And looking at that question takes time, takes some honesty, and hate to mention it, but once again, that's also going to take the ability to operate through some uncertainty. If there's one thing I could leave you with today, it's that an ability to navigate uncertainty with greater confidence. So, 1, we know learning is constant and ongoing, which can be at odds with trying to find an answer. Often, we're looking for answers to overcome an uncertainty of ours, which is completely fine and natural, as in that's part of nature, it's what everybody does. But we often seize on those answers as a part of wanting to be right, or as a part of wanting to be confident, and also, in part, wanting to move away from the discomfort of uncertainty. So, wanting that answer in order to be confident, how many of you have wanted an answer so you could be confident? Am I the only one here? I mean, I know that I have. The other thing I've discovered is that that answer and being right is an incredibly narrow precipice upon which to stand. I think that all of us who've wanted to know the answer in order to be confident have discovered it's a pretty shaky place, because I think that deep down inside, even if we've, okay, good, I was uncertain, I got an answer, I grabbed onto this answer, and I think that's going to make, okay, but part of us knows, what if life asks a slightly different question? Here I am, I've got my answer, but this question's a little bit different. What happens when life asks a different question, but I'm hanging on to my answer so desperately? What's ended up happening for me anyway is the more I try and insist I have the answer, the more I try and force an inappropriate response into that situation. And this is really all because I wanted to be confident, and all because I was not comfortable with the notion of being wrong or uncertain. But here's the truth. Confidence, true confidence, does not come from having the answer. True confidence comes from knowing that you can find an answer, and another, and another. When you know you can learn, you can act with confidence, as you're not basing your ego or your sense of self on being right, but rather on your ability to learn. So when we can be confident about our own ability to learn and come to an answer, we can navigate uncertainty without undue tension or that brittle fragility that comes from needing to be right in a situation. The more confidence we have in our process of learning, the more confident we can be as individuals. And learning itself is really about engaging in practice. One of you mentioned how important the notion of doing this in an applicable way and making certain that we have ongoing effort towards this. That is absolutely the key. The more we practice, the more we become confident in the process. So we don't have to be confident even in the answer we have at the moment. We just have to become confident in knowing that we will go through this process. If we do that, we can step forward. Because we know this journey and our learning continues, one of the most valuable things we can do is shed this entire notion of needing to be right. We don't have to be right. All we have to do is be able to move forward in a reflective way. As long as we're willing to adjust in the face of new information, we can act, putting our currently best foot forward, and trust that we're going to adjust as we go along. This entire notion of wanting to get it right or to be right is an interesting idea anyway, in that what is right and appropriate is constantly evolving. Even in this very discussion right now regarding leadership, no matter how much I might like to get it right, no matter how well I would like to do, and quite honestly, no matter how well this does go, afterward, I'm going to reflect on this process. And you know what I'm going to find? There was something I could have done better. There was something I forgot to include. There was a better way of being more generous or graceful there. So there's absolutely no way for me to get to that point until I go through this point. So the notion of starting this process with a discussion that is correct and right, as if it is fixed and there was one place to land, is fallacious to begin with. That's the nature of practice. That's the nature of refinement. We have to do our repetitions, and we have to trust in that process of learning, knowing that no matter how well this goes, we're going to draw lessons from it, and we're going to improve, and we'll get better as we go along. So while every repetition does have importance, it's important not to imbue any single repetition we have with too much importance. We're all just learning as we go along, and making use of our uncertainty is an absolutely necessary part of growth. Uncertainty is not something to be shied away from or wish we didn't have. It's necessary. All growth is predicated on making new connections. Doesn't matter whether we're talking about connecting the connection between ourselves and new information, or connecting one piece of information to another. All of that requires navigating some uncertainty. As we make those new connections, what happens is we end up reframing the things we thought we knew about ourselves, or the things we thought we knew about a subject, and that can't happen if we're certain. We won't reframe anything we're already certain about. So that uncertainty is a necessary part of our growth. That means, in a very real way, one of the most valuable things we can do for ourselves, for our children, for the people in our organizations that we lead, and the people in our lives that we want to positively impact, is to develop this comfort with uncertainty. A big part of any reluctance to change or to hear new information, and a big part of that incredibly brittle need to be right, tends to stem from this discomfort with uncertainty. So Grace and ease come more naturally when we no longer need to be right. Greater patience and understanding come from knowing that learning is a continually ongoing process. Connection with others and a sense of responsibility arise from knowing that we're constantly leading one another on a daily basis. And ultimately, having a life that is reflective of what we truly desire comes from developing the confidence to navigate our own uncertainty. So I appreciate your time and attention today because I know just how very valuable they are. I thank you for taking the time to listen, and I certainly hope that this discussion has had some value for you.